Disparate impact and disparate treatment can be very confusing. Got it. But let me just start with this. Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was passed to ban discrimination. Fortunately, thanks to Dr. Martin Luther King and some other black activists who got behind the piece of legislation and really championed it, President Lyndon Baines Johnson signed it into law. Now, from that point on, any employer who engaged in workplace discrimination under Title VII could be found liable for workplace discrimination. Bear with me as I go along this journey here. So any employer who engaged in, therefore, any employer who engaged in workplace discrimination could be found liable for breaking the Civil Rights Act law. Now, there's two doctrines of legal liability that employees often lodge against their employer. One is called disparate treatment that you asked about, and the other one, disparate impact. Let's talk about disparate treatment first. I know a lot about that, having worked in the federal government. Disparate treatment is intentional discrimination. It's when someone, your employer, treats you differently on purpose because of your protected group, your category, be it race, sex, age, national origin, or whatnot. It means treating you differently than someone who's similarly situated. For example, my workplace. A while ago, quite some time ago, my supervisor, who just happened to be a white male, would only promote white males. Nothing that looks like me. And I recall asking him about my career opportunities, particularly since I had gotten exceptional performance ratings. And he looked at me and he said, "Tanya, you're black, you're a woman, you can go someplace else to work." Well, I had never, ever filed a complaint before. But with that remark, I found my way to the EEO office. Disparate treatment. He treated me differently compared to similarly situated employees, white males, because of my race and my sex being gender, female. That's an example of disparate treatment. Now let's talk about, on the other hand, disparate impact. Disparate impact is a different legal liability doctrine where it says that an employer may use, or perhaps is using, I should say, facially neutral policy and practices that just so happens to perhaps unintentionally, in a hidden way, exclude a certain group of people. Now, for example, maybe in your workplace, they may only promote, let's say they only promote people who are 5, or you can only get this job or be selected for a job if you're 5'10" or over. Don't know about you, I'm just about trying to bust 5'9". I surely couldn't apply for the job, nor could a lot of other women. Therefore, maybe the employer did not mean to intentionally discriminate against women, but by imposing a standard of 5'10" to apply, they actually discriminated against a group of people, whether intentionally or unintentionally, by imposing a requirement that they can't justify. Now, I do want to share that Trump issued a presidential executive order in April 2025 stating that he was no longer going to, or EEOC and the DOJ was no longer going to enforce or prioritize disparate impact claims. So what does that mean to you? It means that all is not lost. One can still have an actionable disparate impact claim. However, if you're going through the process, if you're going through EEOC for any reason, EEOC is just not going to give that claim high priority. So you better dot your I's and cross your T's and do that homework yourself to prove your case. And then after that, you can file suit in court. You can also, just to let you know, you can check with your state or local communities, localities, to see what anti-discrimination laws they enforce, because you can also go use that avenue. But in summary, disparate treatment is intentional discrimination where someone is treated differently because of their protected group, and disparate impact, think of adverse impact, is where employer uses so-called neutral policies that excludes a certain group. And hopefully that answers the question. I'm always on the go, but I wanted you to know, because I always say, before you get that inclination to file a complaint of discrimination, get more information.